Welcome, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. This is Alan Piscitello. I'm the Vice President of Product at Blockstream, and welcome you to our webinar on getting started on Liquid. As you can see there, if you're unfamiliar with this platform, there is a chat available as well, and I have a couple of people in here as well, Daniel Williams and Neil Woodfine, who can help answer questions in the chat. If you have anything that you want to ask during the webinar, we're happy to go over that, so please feel free to add to the chat. What we're going to talk about today is getting started on Liquid from the perspective of a trader. So this is the second webinar in this series. The first one we had was pretty heavily focused on the developer side. And now in this webinar, we're going to talk a lot more about how to actually use Liquid as a trader. So you don't have to necessarily be programming expert or anything like that to actually take advantage and use Liquid. So let's get started. All right, so we're going to go over just kind of an overview of Liquid for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. And then we're going to talk about two main use cases that traders can use. And those are the inter-exchange transfers and using a Liquid wallet. And they both have different use cases and why you might want to do that. And we're going to go over that shortly. All right, so Liquid overview. We really view Liquid as a layer 2 for trading. So Liquid provides additional means to transfer Bitcoin between users or different exchanges with a different set of security assumptions than what you have in Bitcoin. So it's more similar to the trust models that you already have trading today. So right now, if you want to trade on an exchange, you would simply deposit your Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies or fiat currencies on this exchange, and they would hold them in custody for you. And you would be able to execute your trades. And then when you're done trading, you'd be able to pull those Bitcoin or other assets back to your own possession. And so that's some of what the kind of main use case of Liquid is really based upon. And the way it works is it's a side chain of Bitcoin. So the way this works is you take Bitcoin and you can freeze it inside of the Bitcoin blockchain, and you can then get a token called Liquid Bitcoin, and it represents a Bitcoin that's being held by the network. And you can send that to someone else, you can pass that around, transfer that between exchanges, and then at the end, people who are members of Liquid can then take that Liquid Bitcoin and request to receive 1 Bitcoin for each token held. So this is something that can be proven in real time, that there is a one-for-one backing of this, but it basically will allow you to use Liquid Bitcoin in ways that you couldn't otherwise use Bitcoin. And besides Bitcoin, you can actually create any arbitrary asset on the Liquid sidechain. So this means you could create a token that represents a stable coin or a security token or even any other cryptocurrency as well. So you could take this asset, you create it in an amount that you specify, and then all transactions that use that asset moving forward will make sure that the supply doesn't change and that you're sending exactly when you send a transaction, your recipients receive the same amounts of what was sent. So this is something that's enforced by the network to make sure it's correct, but only Bitcoin pegs are actually enforced by the network. So if you had a token that was, say, represents $1 in a bank account or a gold bar in a vault, in those cases, there's nothing on the Liquid network that's actually going and verifying that those things exist. You still need to trust the issuer of those and do any kind of auditing or validating you need to. Also, if you had a tokenized cryptocurrency, the network itself doesn't actually enforce that there is an asset backing that. But with something like a cryptocurrency, you could actually see that a lot easier than something like something outside of the realm of a blockchain. All right, so there's kind of 3 main benefits or categories of benefits of who uses Liquid. So the main benefit, I think, is to traders. So really what you have here is when you transfer Bitcoin on the main chain, it can be unreliable, it can be costly, and it can leak a lot of information out to traders moving funds. So there's some Twitter accounts out there that monitor, someone made a large deposit on Bitstamp of Bitcoin. So that triggers information. When you have a mined blockchain, there may be a block in the next 10 minutes, and there may not be a block for the next hour. And even when you get a block, it's possible that that transaction could be reversed depending on how many confirmations it has. And of course, you're bidding against everyone else trying to use that blockchain for transaction finality. So this is something that using Liquid can really help you with. It helps you move your funds more quickly. So Liquid has 1 minute block times and transaction finality in 2 minutes. So that's much faster than you'd get with Bitcoin. And it also does it without revealing information to others. So what this means is if I send Bitcoin to an exchange, anyone who's just watching that blockchain can validate that it's correct, that I'm not sending more than I actually have, but they have no idea what asset I'm sending or how much it's trading. So this is something that's going to allow me to gain greater profit by moving faster and more privately. And exchanges can benefit as well, because when exchanges, customer deposits funds on exchange, the exchange is going to have to take a trade-off of how many confirmations do I want to wait to let them trade versus the security. So the longer I wait in terms of confirmations, the more I can be assured that that transaction will not be reversed. But that means that my customer is not actually trading during those times. So Liquid helps balance that out by letting your traders execute their trades much faster. So this is something that could cost you revenue, as you're basically waiting for them to trade. And also, if you add Liquid, you're adding the possibility to add more liquidity to your exchange, because now if you ever get a large order that comes in and puts your exchange at a disadvantage to others in terms of price, people can move their capital there and balance out that price much faster. And the last one is for brokers. So brokers usually need to have a high degree of trust in who they trade with, or they need to use a third party to act as an escrow agent. So in this case, you can really limit who you're trading with, and you might end up having to pay higher fees or higher prices with who you're trading with, because the people who are the most trusted can generally charge a premium. So Liquid reduces this need for trusting a third parties by allowing something called atomic swap, and this allows you to swap Liquid, Bitcoin, and any other asset without having to trust the other party. And we're not going to get into that too much in this webinar. We do have a future one scheduled that will talk a little bit more detail on some of these more advanced use cases. We're going to focus kind of mostly on the first one, is how do you benefit as a trader. All right, so I mentioned that Liquid is a sidechain. So what this means is that it has Bitcoin as a native asset on Liquid. This is what you pay fees in. This is what you transact with. You can transact with other assets as well, but Bitcoin is special on Liquid. So in this case, if you want to have Liquid Bitcoin, you first send Bitcoin to the network, and you can then claim Liquid Bitcoin on the network. Now, for the most part, exchanges are going to be the ones doing this. If you're just an everyday trader, you don't have to worry about this process too much. They will worry about balancing these funds and making sure that there's enough Liquid Bitcoin available for you. And if they get too much, they can remove it from the network. And if they get too little, they can send more Bitcoin into the network. But generally, what you can think of is that there is one Bitcoin for every Liquid Bitcoin. It's an equivalent asset. And what you do is, because you're on Liquid, you have different rules. So Liquid has what's called a federation. This means that there's a set of exchanges and traders and market makers and financial institutions that are actually operating this network with a bunch of servers. So whereas Bitcoin uses mining and proof of work, Liquid uses these servers. And what they do is they have it in their, in the hardware embedded, that they will only create blocks that move forward once something's been, has a confirmation on it. So this allows you, since there's not energy being expended, it's very predictable. You can get blocks every minute in Liquid, whereas with mining in Bitcoin, it's unpredictable. And additionally, you have some new transaction types in Liquid, which are confidential transactions that allow you to send an amount without revealing how much you're sending, or revealing what asset you're sending. So this is something that's extra in Liquid compared to other, just normal Bitcoin. So it's really geared towards the trader. Now that does mean there's a little bit difference of trust model with Liquid compared to Bitcoin. And really where Liquid compares to is funds that you would normally have deposited on an exchange. So that's really the direction of comparison that's the most fair here. These are the Bitcoin that you want to use for trading. So there's kind of three trust models that we have, when you're trading with Bitcoin. And the first one is funds you hold on the blockchain yourself in Bitcoin. So that's something where you have your own Bitcoin wallet, you're holding it. You don't have to trust anyone else. There's the only thing you're doing is making sure you're protecting your private keys. On the other side, you have the custodial funds. So this is like if I go to Kraken or I go to Bitfinex and I send them my Bitcoin. Now I have a balance of Bitcoin at that account and I can trade with it. But those funds are now solely in the control of whoever I'm trading with. And these exchanges will protect the funds through a variety of, cold storage or hot wallets to trade off between convenience of accessing funds and security, but you're really still trusting that third party. And Liquid sits in the middle. So what you have there is you have this multi-party trust system where it's not just one exchange that holds the funds that's in Liquid, it's all of the members of Liquid collectively hold this, and it requires a 2/3 majority of them to be able to spend the funds. And so that provides a much greater security model than what you'd have at trusting a single exchange, while still not being quite as trustless as Bitcoin, where you have the keys yourself. You have this Liquid Bitcoin, which can be traded in for a Bitcoin, but it's not quite the same. So in terms of what you're trading with, this is a much better alternative than just leaving money on an exchange. I mentioned kind of some of the differences here. Miners are including transactions in Bitcoin. With Liquid, you have what's called a block signer. This is the federation itself. They are actually signing blocks. You need 2/3 of them as well to create a block that is valid. This means that as long as 1/3 of them are honest, that you will have a secure blockchain. And then on the other side, if you're doing a transaction on an exchange, they're just updating a ledger, usually some type of database, and they can do that very quickly. So with Bitcoin, you have not any built-in privacy other than the fact that there's pseudonymity in addresses. With Liquid, you have the ability to have confidential addresses so that only you know what the amounts are and only the person you're sending them to. And then with the custodial funds, everything's happening on that server, so it's private to that exchange itself. They can see everything, but no one else can know what's going on there. With speed, Bitcoin's relatively slow at 10-minute blocks, and even more for waiting for finality. Liquid, you're having 1-minute blocks, and of course, if you have something on exchange, they're very instant. If you do a trade there, they're happening multiple times per second. They're just as fast as they can update that database. So it comes into cost as well. The cost of a transaction in Bitcoin is variable based on demand. Bitcoin's been around for a long time, so the blocks are nearly almost always full. So you're seeing, at peak times, the price can be quite, much higher, and at slower times, it's much lower. With Liquid, it's also the same idea. It's a variable fee structure based on demand. Right now, since Liquid's in the early days, you basically can send at the minimal fee, which is 1 Satoshi per virtual byte, which will depend on your transaction size and how what the price of Bitcoin is, but it's usually in about the 10 to 20 cent range right now. And then on when you're transacting on a custodian, it doesn't necessarily cost anything to send other than what fees they charge you. So for security, Bitcoin, you are responsible for your own security. For Liquid, someone needs to attack multiple points on the network, attack 2/3 majority of these exchanges. It's a very difficult thing compared to a custodial exchange where it's a single point of failure. If you can, hack these exchanges, you now have access to the funds, and now they might have more obligations than they have funds. So we've seen this with several hacks, over the years. There's been multiple ones. One of the big ones recently was the Binance hack. But there's been other ones as well, and sometimes they have enough funds to cover it, and sometimes they don't. And if you have funds on this exchange, you might just be completely out of luck. So people on Mt. Gox are still trying to get their funds back. And again, transaction finality, it really takes about 60 minutes on Bitcoin, about 2 minutes on Liquid, and in transaction finality on Liquid on the exchanges is basically whenever they send you your funds out of it, because it's a database. They could, freely change it as much as they want. All right. So moving forward, we do have a set of members for Liquid. We've kind of grouped them in here. Now, sometimes people wear lots of hats. and a lot of these businesses do, but we kind of have a group of exchanges. We have a group of traders and brokers that are involved in Liquid, and we have a set of wallets and payment processors and also infrastructure companies. So there's a large and growing number of exchanges now that are joining the Liquid network, and as they join the network, they're then integrating their services into this. So we have a handful of members that are actually currently active and integrating right now. So we have Bitfinex and BitMEX, The Rock Trading, and SideShift AI, all as actively integrated. You can go use these things today. The BitMEX integration is a little bit special. We have an additional sign up for that. It's kind of a limited access beta program for that. But the other ones are wide open to any users of the exchanges. And then we have a couple integrations in progress with Coin1, Huobi, CoinNet, and GoPax as well. And more coming soon. It just takes some time to add Liquid as an additional deposit option. All right, so we're going to jump right into the first use case that I mentioned. And that is exchange transfers. So the problem statement is I'm trading on one exchange. I happen to see a price discrepancy, and another exchange is much cheaper. Or I'm sorry, in this case, let's just say I have Bitcoin. I see that the price of Bitcoin is much higher on the other exchange. And so I want to move my funds very quickly from one exchange to another. There's other reasons why you might want to do this as well, as if you're doing some type of algorithmic trading, you may need to balance out your funds between the different exchanges if you're market making. But basically you have funds at one exchange and you want to move it to another. And right now, if you want to do that, you do use that with Bitcoin. You'll request a withdrawal from the exchange. They'll send it on the Bitcoin network. You'll pay a fee, and in roughly an hour, your funds will now be available on the other exchange. With Liquid, there's a different option, and that's basically you can use Liquid Bitcoin to move your funds between exchanges that support Liquid deposits and withdrawals and have your funds completely transferred in 2 minutes. So it's a much faster solution, helps you get back into trading and take advantage of situations much faster. So I'm going to kind of walk through that kind of example here. Here's the one I mentioned. This is the example where I have funds on exchange A, and I want to go to exchange B. Basically, someone just bid up the price on exchange B much higher. I want to take advantage of that by buying a bunch of Bitcoin on exchange A, sending it to exchange B, and then I want to sell it over there and capture a profit, which is right now be $500 per Bitcoin. So I'm going to just race some Bitcoin and Liquid Bitcoin in this example to see how it works. And so after 0 minutes, I submit a transaction right here to withdrawal, and on both exchanges, or on both methods, one using Bitcoin and one using Liquid Bitcoin, we have an unconfirmed transaction that's been sent out to each of the blockchains. So after 1 minute, we actually have our transaction included in a block in Liquid. So we can see this little box around it represents a block, and we have the pictures of the functionary servers signing on, and our Bitcoin transaction is just still sitting there waiting. And as you can see, the price is now moving down on another exchange because there are traders over there actively trying to take advantage of the situation as well, and they already have funds there. So I'm sitting out here missing out on profit while my funds are moving. All right, so then after 2 minutes have gone by, I actually have my funds on that exchange. The price has only dipped a little bit. I'm just using a $10 per minute decrease. It's just arbitrary, but you can see here that the Bitcoin that has arrived using Liquid has now turned a $480 profit per Bitcoin that I sent. Meanwhile, my Bitcoin transaction is still waiting, so let's wait a little bit longer. All right, 10 minutes, we now see that the miner has included a block of Bitcoin, but this exchange is very strict, and they don't allow deposits to count until you've had 6 confirmations. So we're still sitting there waiting. Price keeps dropping. And okay, now we got another block. This one came a little faster than 10 minutes. That's good, but we're still not there. All right, now we have our third block, and this one actually took longer. So we had a 14-minute block. And one thing to keep in mind is, every day on average, there's at least one block that takes at least an hour to mine. And that's just due to the randomness of trying to find a block in Bitcoin. And sometimes this means that you could have, to get 6 blocks, it could take 3 hours or longer, and that's something that regularly happens on Bitcoin. Now you may get lucky and it may take just a couple of minutes to get a block, but overall it's very hard to beat this 2 minutes. All right, we're making it all the way through, and we've gotten the 6 blocks here, but by this time the price of Bitcoin evened out, and now we don't have any profit. So this is, a lot of traders account for this. They try to keep their funds balanced on exchange, but this now means I need to have larger amounts of funds available everywhere. Maybe my trade sizes are much smaller because I have to split my funds and I can only take advantage of things much smaller. Whereas with Liquid, I can zip around very quickly and trade as much as needed. All right, so unfortunately, for this next part, we're going to rely on screenshots here. So hopefully you can see my screen. I'm not going to actually use an exchange. Unfortunately, I am based in the US, and that means that a lot of exchanges don't like to actually allow me to have an account. But we do fortunately have some people that were able to do this and send me some screenshots of the process, so I'll walk you through exactly how that works. So what we're going to do is we're going to, each exchange is a little bit different, and we are in the process of updating our guides to kind of show every exchange how it's supported. They all have a little quirks, but for the most part, they follow the same pattern. And so what we're going to do in this example is we're going to send some liquid Bitcoin from Bitfinex to the Rock Trading. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do, this is a screen from the Rock Trading. And the Rock was one of actually, we're the very first ones to integrate with Liquid. So what I do here is I'm going into my wallet, I'm going into Bitcoin, and they actually have 3 methods of accepting Bitcoin deposits. So you can accept Bitcoin through using the Bitcoin blockchain, you can accept it through Ripple, and you can accept it through Liquid. And when you go to Liquid, you can see in here that they have an address in here for you. This is a confidential address. You can see that it starts with the letters VT here. There's different address formats in Liquid, but generally you can see that it's a very long address compared to what you might see in the Bitcoin blockchain. And the reason is it's actually kind of 2 addresses in one. One is the normal address that's what you'd think of every day, what you're going to see when you monitor the blockchain, and the other part is what's called a blinding key. So this is a way for the person who's accepting the deposit, in this case the Rock Trading, and you can actually go in there and send some funds to this address. No one on the blockchain knows what the amount is; they can't see it, but the receiver can know exactly what's going to set in here as well. And so then what you have here is I generate this address, and now I can go to Bitfinex. Now Bitfinex has a little trick in here, and what they do is if you have Bitcoin in your wallet, they have this currency conversions step that allows you to just convert Bitcoin to liquid Bitcoin. And this is just kind of for their accounting purposes. I believe they do this so that they can make sure they actually have enough of it for you to send. So if you tried to convert 1 million Bitcoin into liquid Bitcoin, that would probably fail because there's not 1 million liquid Bitcoin in their reserves. So it's a way to kind of like as a check to make sure that's correct. So I'm converting 2 thousandths of a Bitcoin into liquid Bitcoin. And once I do this, I now have that amount in my balance here. So you can see on liquid Bitcoin, I can actually go see this is an asset that I have in my wallet. I can put the address in here that's copy pasted from the Rock Trading. I can specify the amount I want to send, and I can put a note on here if I want to. And when I get done with this example, I see there's a lot of questions in here. I'll go kind of step into how that works as well. All right, so I do that. I now press withdrawal. Now I did have to do some type of confirmations of those withdrawal requests, depending on how I set up my Bitfinex account. If I had a 2-factor authentication or an email requirement, I'd have to still go through that process. But once I do that, they send the transfer, and now the funds are available on the Rock Trading in 2 minutes. So that was, pretty fast of getting funds over there, and now I'm free to trade. And the way the Rock Trading does it is if they see a liquid Bitcoin deposit, they will just give you Bitcoin in your account just right there. So you don't even have to do the conversion step. So again, these are just kind of like little quirks you'll probably learn as everyone integrates. For the most part, people are trying to stay the same, but people have to sometimes a little bit differently. All right, so coming next, we have the ability on all these exchanges that are integrated. We'll have more exchanges soon, and with time, more and more, we'll begin the integration process. But we also have liquid version of Tether and other stable coins that will allow you to do a full arbitrage. So in the previous example that I did, you showed, you brought your Bitcoin over to one exchange. Well, in this case, maybe I want to do that cycle again. So I go 2 minutes into the exchange. I now can send out liquid Tether back to the first exchange, exchange A, and go buy more Bitcoin and keep this process over and over again every 2 minutes and profit every step along the way. So this is something that will be really exciting once we have that available. Right now you're having to send it back, with if they support Tether in this case, you'd have to send it back using a different protocol that might be slower or less private and reveal a lot of information. All right, I'm going to jump into the questions now as well, just to see if there's anything that I covered that had needed more clarification. Can liquid Bitcoin ever become inflation to BTC? So in that case, you're always verifying that there is one Bitcoin locked up for every Bitcoin. There's actually a consensus rule. What you do when you start up your liquid node is you make sure it's pointing to a Bitcoin node. And whenever someone tries to say, hey, I sent Bitcoin, give me liquid Bitcoin, it will actually go out and find that block and prove that there was Bitcoin in that block sent to the Federation. So no, as long as the network's operating properly, there won't be any inflation to Bitcoin. The only way that possibly could happen is if there's some type of cryptography break or something where there was a greater supply through confidential transactions. But this is something that's pretty well understood, and so yeah, there's not really any way for it to cause inflation. Is the pay concept analogous to a Lightning channel? It's somewhat similar. So when you set up a Lightning channel, you basically say, I'm sending money to this 2 of 2 transaction or 2 of 2 signature, and by the way, I also need a way to get my funds back in case my counterparty goes away. So we do use multi-signature for liquid. It's going to the Federation itself. The Federation is respending this. So once you do that, the funds you don't have any control of it like you would with Lightning. That gives you a little bit more flexibility in that the funds could be sent anywhere since it's a different token. But it says, yeah, there's not the game theory of we have to see if someone tries to close the channel or not, because once we sent the Federation funds, they're pretty much released, and we just have our liquid Bitcoin token. The question is about the custodian funds on the table. Is that referring to exchanges? Yeah, basically any kind of exchange or any type of system where you're sending funds to someone else and they are, updating a ledger. It's mostly exchanges that are doing this as well. Transaction finality being probabilistic based on the likelihood that they're honest. Yes. So if 2/3 of the Federation got together, organized, and took the Bitcoin from underneath, that's something to, it's definitely a different security model. It's final inside of the network. It's 2-minute block time. When is it? What's federated? Can it be much faster? So I got another question too, is saying you guys can't see these questions, so I didn't realize that. So the question is, why 2 minutes block time when it's federated? Can it be faster? So it's actually a 1 minute block time. We probably could tweak it to be faster. We did choose 1 minute for a couple of reasons, and one of them is the functionaries do communicate over Tor, which is doing a type of onion routing to send things over hops, and that can be somewhat unreliable. So you're trading off reliability and how fast it can process. So you're going to have some baseline. I think 1 minute was arbitrary, and I think in the future we can look to see if that could be changed. But yeah, 1 minute is what we have. How long has the concept of Bitcoin sidechains been around? So the first sidechain, there was a sidechain white paper, and this discussion was created, and I might mess up my history here, but I know there's people who correct me here. But this is something that Greg Maxwell and Adam Back talked about even before the founding of Blockstream. So this has been around a while, and the idea is that you could do different things with Bitcoin. You could use it as an upgrade mechanism. You could test new features. So it's been around quite a while. There was a couple of sidechains white papers written over the years. The next question is how often are exchanges are audited for solvency? So this really depends on the exchange themselves and any kind of local regulators. Every exchange has a different policy on this. Are there exchanges looking for developers to work on supporting Liquid? I do remember seeing Zappo making a job description pretty recently. I don't know if that's still active or not. So that's the one I know of. I'm not aware of any off the top of my head, but again, if anyone's watching this and is hiring, that would be, yeah, let me know. Okay, I think I went through all the questions that are there for now. Keep those coming in. Be happy to answer those. We should have time for more at the end as well. All right, I'm going to jump back to the next slide here. All right, withdrawals to wallets. So we're going to jump into another problem statement that we have. So the idea is as a trader, I have to leave my funds on lots of different exchanges because there might be an advantageous situation that pops up at an exchange. And there's different degrees of how comfortable you feel at exchanges. There's always a counterparty risk when someone else holds your funds. And this means that I need to keep my funds on the exchanges because it could take me, upwards of 1 hour or longer to send my funds to the exchange, and by that time, the trading opportunity could be gone. So traders, what they're doing now, they're splitting their funds. If there's somewhere that's kind of a little risky, they just don't trade there at all, or have a small amount, and they can keep their funds there. So with Liquid, you can actually do a couple of things that are reduce that risk. How can I reduce my risk? That the exchange could be hacked, or you could have something like Quadriga where they just disappear and your funds are gone. And in this case, what you can do is you can actually remove funds into your own Liquid wallet. So once you're ready to trade again, then you can send them back to any exchange that supports Liquid and have them there in 2 minutes. So this is a way to reduce your risk of trading at an exchange. So in this example, we're going to look at the pictures again. Here, the exchange is going to hold some Liquid Bitcoin, and it's going to hold some Bitcoin. And they're naturally a target. So anyone that holds a large amount of Bitcoin has a nice target on them. There's some very sophisticated attacks out there that people have launched. The Binance hack, for example, from what I remember hearing about this, was pretty sophisticated in how they were able to penetrate the system to extract a large amount of Bitcoin. Whereas individual traders themselves, it's not as profitable to just steal from traders because you have to, target them individually. So this makes it, risky to have funds on an exchange. A lot of times the exchanges can cover this, and sometimes they can't. And when they can't, you're the one who is without your funds. So in this case, they have the funds Bitcoin. They have Liquid Bitcoin here. On the left, I have this is my green wallet. So Blockstream Green is our multi-signature non-custodial wallet. We've had it for Bitcoin for many number of years. I think it's about 4 or 5 years old. It's been around. It's been battle tested. It's got things like two-factor authentication in it. And now recently we added support for Liquid. So what this means is, I'm done trading for the day. It's a manual trading system I'm doing. I'm done. I'm going to go to sleep for the night. But in the morning, I want to be able to trade right away. So, I have to leave. If I just had Bitcoin, I'd have to leave it on the exchange because it would take me too long in the morning to trade. But with Liquid Bitcoin, I can pull that out. So I'm going to pull that Liquid Bitcoin out. I'm going to put it in my wallet. You can see here I have a whole whopping $90 in my account here. But there you can also support larger amounts of Bitcoin in this wallet as well. So again, it has things like two-factor authentication that you could set up to like Google Authenticator or SMS or email, whatever you want to do to secure your funds. Meanwhile, on the right, the hacker appears and sees the funds left on the exchange. That's the nice target. So the hacker takes the funds out, and now the exchange has more liabilities than they have assets. And either they go out of business and you have to end up with bankruptcy court, or they'll give a haircut to each of the traders. We've seen lots of different variations of this over the year. Whereas on the left, nothing really happened with my liquid Bitcoin because it's secured by the federation of 15 exchanges. So as long as 11 of them are safe, in this case out of 15, I'm sorry, not 11, as long as 5 of them are safe, then my funds are safe. And as long as 11 of them are active, then the network's working properly. All right, so we have a set of wallets that do support Liquid right now. So we do. I mentioned Blockstream Green. This is our non-custodial multi-signature wallet. It's operational today with Liquid, Bitcoin. So this is one option you have. It's available for Android and mobile, iOS. Desktop is coming soon. We also have one of the Liquid members, D Group, actually has a wallet called RenRenBit. This is a wallet that does many different features. I think they do lending. They do many different applications, multi-signature, but they also support Liquid Bitcoin. And then if you're a power user, you can use the Liquid Core wallet that's built inside of that software. So this is something that's very similar to Bitcoin Core. So several different options here. More planned. I know of at least 2 more that are actively integrating and should be ready soon. So as the Liquid ecosystem grows, you should start seeing more support for different wallets, and you can choose the wallet that best suits you. All right, so the first thing you need to do this is you need to set up your wallet. So every wallet's going to have a different process for this, but a lot of them are going to have a very similar feel. So what you're going to do is you're going to, this is Blockstream Green in this example. We choose the network as Liquid. That's a choice you can make at the beginning. You're getting a set of mnemonics here. This is going to be a way to restore your wallet. So you need to back that up so that you can actually restore it in case your phone dies or you want to start it up on another app, another phone in this case. Once you've set up your wallet, you can go to the receive screen and you can get a deposit address. And you can see here, this is that big, long, crazy string that looks like we had at the other ones. We also have a QR code. And you can take this and use that at an exchange. So we recommend always using a unique address for each one of your times you receive Liquid Bitcoin or any other assets. This also applies to Bitcoin. All right, so I took that address, and you can't see all of it here because it is quite long, and that screen is pretty small there. But I'm copying in that address in there. I'm saying please withdraw 25 thousandths of a Bitcoin into, or 2.5 thousandths of a Bitcoin into my wallet. So I'm sending it to my green wallet using my keys, my Bitcoin. Again, if you need to do any kind of authorization steps, you have that as well. Now you can sit there and wait in your wallet, and you can see that this transaction was received. So now I can see the transaction was received. It's kind of a little faded here on this screen, but you can see that the 2.5 thousandth of a Bitcoin showed up in my wallet. And again, it only took 2 confirmations. It's now listed as final. I have my Liquid Bitcoin in my wallet. I don't have to worry about if this exchange has any kind of issues, and I can go now send it to any other exchange. Of course, I don't want to necessarily just keep it in my wallet forever, so I can go deposit it back, get my deposit address back on the Rock. I can go back into the send button here. I can paste that address in. I can send the amount, and again, the funds will arrive on the exchange in 2 minutes. And there we go. I sent some funds back to the Rock, and you can actually see that they just credited me in Bitcoin right there. So this is an intermediate step. If you're not actively trading, you want to hold the funds yourself and then be able to trade at a later date. That's a good way to do that. And holding it in Liquid Bitcoin is a lot more secure than holding it at any individual exchange. All right. So coming next for support is having hardware wallets support. So Blockstream Green already supports hardware wallets for Bitcoin, but there's additional work that is needed to get those to support Liquid Bitcoin. Some additional crypto that's needed to be added, and we're working closely with those some of the existing companies, Ledger and Trezor, to get those supported. And again, as soon as that's ready, we'll be able to ready to do that as well. Blockstream Green for desktop. So a lot of traders like to use desktop instead of a mobile app. We're adding, support for our desktop client. We have a desktop client for Blockstream Green, but it's only Bitcoin, and it's going to now be handled. We did a refresh of the apps and made it much more usable and much more pretty to look at as well. And then additional third-party wallets. Those are things that are also coming soon. So we won't be. We have these 3 different ways right now. There will be more in the future. And again, you can push if you have a favorite wallet that you like to use. Go ahead and push them to use it. If you have an exchange that's not on the list, go ahead and push them and say you want them to support liquid deposits and withdrawals, so you can get your money much faster as well. So questions. I see there's a new question that did pop up from Bart in here, and I don't know if it disappeared here. The question was, I lost it here. It popped up and then it said published. Okay. What barriers prevents exchanges like Kraken and Coinbase to Bitstamp to adopt liquid Bitcoin? When do you expect exchanges to come on board? Yeah, so this is an ongoing conversation. We've launched Liquid about not quite a year ago. We launched it in October of last year. So it's been, relatively short period of time here. And so I guess we can start first with the technical answer here as well. So the idea here is if I want to do this, it's very similar to supporting Bitcoin. So the APIs are very similar. You just need to know to check what asset it is. So from a technical barrier, it actually hasn't been too hard. Everyone we know that has been integrating it has kind of gotten into it and gone pretty quickly here. Now, the question is, I'd say it's more from a commercial or business side of it on this as well. So in this case, there's a lot of priorities at exchanges. There's a lot of trust involved in writing this software. You want to make sure people are writing it that are trustworthy, and there's a lot of priorities. So, when you add something like a new altcoin or something into your exchange, that's something that kind of has a very clear benefit to them. You also you're competing against things like how do we scale the trading engine to execute more faster. So that or execute faster. Sorry, it sounded silly there. So that there's a lot of competition here. So companies like Kraken, Bitstamp, Coinbase, a lot of these have expressed interest. It's going to take customer demand for a lot of them to adopt. We are in talks with all of the above, and again, if there's any more, they would like to hear it from actual users more than us about prioritizing this. So it's just a matter of what it takes to get in there. Under another question here is, are there any fees for transferring liquid Bitcoin? And the answer is yes. There are anti-spam fees right here. We do have a minimum of 1 Satoshi per virtual byte, and just that sounds very technical. What that means is, you have to pay a Satoshi for a transaction. The transaction virtual bytes are usually about 2,000 or so. These are bigger transactions than Bitcoin, so it comes out to about 10 to 20 cents right now. Obviously, if the price of Bitcoin goes up, that number can go up, but we can also reduce the minimum fee as well. So that's something that is possible. Has any federated partner started a date for trader-enabled with liquid Bitcoin withdrawals? Yes. So some of the ones that we did see, we were aiming to get on very soon. So this is Huobi, OKCoin. I'm sorry, Huobi. I gotta go back and look at my list here. Coin One, CoinNut, and GoPax were the ones that are pretty soon. We don't have any official dates on those as well. And I see a run on from Max. To Green Wallet. I think that's the same question. So, yeah, it basically can withdraw to another exchange or to your Green Wallet as well. And there's another question here. It says trading on BISC. So I'm not sure what you mean by that. So does that mean like trading liquid Bitcoin on BISC as an asset that you could swap with someone? In that case, yeah, I think BISC, if I remember right, they allow anyone who follows a certain protocol to basically add it in there, and there might be some fee on that to review. So if there's demand for that, that's something that could be added, but we don't have any set dates on that as well. And just seeing if there's any other questions here. I'm seeing a couple pop up in new. Yeah, so you have to add it as an altcoin support. Yeah, I think they require minimally a pull request to support it, which ideally should be pretty easy compared to, because there already is Bitcoin in there. All right, let's see if there's anything in the chat here as well. Pay Satoshi. Oh, I don't. Okay, looks like we might have. All right, any other questions? Last chance in here. I think we might wrap up just a little bit early then. There's something popped up. Oh, what is Lightning on Liquid? Okay, that's a good question. So we actually did release an example of this that was showing how you could do Lightning on top of Liquid. So it's because Liquid is based on Bitcoin. It has the same APIs. It is possible to do Lightning on Liquid. And right now we did an example that shows how to do that with LBTC. Now, LBTC is the first asset that it would support. And the idea here is it's pretty simple, because Lightning assumes that you're paying a fee in the same asset that you're actually updating the channel with. It is possible to do other assets as well on Liquid. So if you had, say, like Tether on Liquid, you could create a Lightning network for Tether on Liquid. It does require more code changes and more things that can be done for C Lightning for that to work, and some protocol changes as well. But it is something that is possible, and it is in our roadmap as well. Give everyone just a couple more minutes here as well. Any other questions? All right, so there is another webinar, and I don't remember the exact date here, but stay tuned to the Blockstream Twitter. We will post it. We have these pretty frequently coming up. I think there's a couple on Lightning, but we will do another one kind of more advanced trading and developer oriented. Basically, we'll show things like we have a swap tool for Liquid, which will allow you to trade an asset trustlessly with your trading partner. So basically, if I'm trading Bitcoin and I want to receive Tether, I can set up a transaction that we both sign, and there never is a state where I end up with both the Bitcoin and the Tether, and there's never a state where I end up with neither. Either the trade executes or it doesn't. Now, atomic swaps have been possible between chains in the past, but they usually require a lot of complications in setting up and locking up coins for potentially a long period of time. So this is something where it's much simpler on Liquid. So we'll have that in the future one, as well as talk about building assets. So a lot of different webinars coming up moving forward. So happy to go over that in a future webinar. And I see another one here from George as well, so I'll keep this going. Bounty for integration on Bisq. That's an interesting idea. Yeah, that's something we could definitely take a look at. Let's get on. Last call for questions. All right, I think that should be about it. Thanks for everyone for attending, and I look forward to talking to you at the next one. All right, thank you.